4 jails failed to give inmates their basic human rights during the COVID-19 lockdown, meaning the prisoners missed out on their minimum 1 hour daily exercise in the open air. The Chief Ombusdman Peter Boshier has released a new report based on inspections of units at 9 prisons in Auckland, Wellington and Christchurch during Alert Level 3. He found that while prisons responded in a well-resourced, balanced and efficient manner, this came at a cost to the prisoners themselves. Judge Peter Bosher joins me now in our Auckland studio. Good evening.
Good evening, Lisa.
Why were these prisoners being denied what is a basic legal right? That's an hour, just 1 hour of exercise in the fresh air.
I think what it amounted to was that the prisons found that they were really short-staffed. So when you look at the number of prison staff who were either sick, not available, couldn't come in, had been in isolation because they'd been faced with someone else who might be sick, I think the truth of it was two things. Quite complex management, prisoners coming in who are remand prisoners having to remain in their own bubble, staff not as voluminous in number as might be the case. I think the consequence of that was two things. One, at least they kept COVID-19 out, but two, it came at a cost.
So is it basically that they could achieve this if they had the right amount of resources, that is more staff?
Oh yes, it's simply a management issue. And I mean, that's what we're here for. Over the years, we have pointed to corrections, I hope constructively, to say, this is what you were doing, but you should do it better, and we suggest ways in which you should do it. Look, with this report, to be fair, it was better than we had expected. I was really worried about what we would find because prison visits had been suspended. Initially, we had difficulty getting our way into prisons. I had a genuine concern. In fact, we found they managed it better than we thought they were going to.
But even saying that, though, and you got maybe a tiny taste of it at level 4, being locked down in your own home, if you are in a prison cell for endless hours a day, that 1 hour is absolute gold to you. So is it acceptable that they were not getting it?
It's not acceptable. And of course, that's only the minimum.
Yeah.
As a general rule, obviously, we encourage prisoners, and for the very, very real reason that it's good for the soul and the body to be able to get out of your cell. That's good for the person. It's good for your development, your whole being, your order. So it's not acceptable to not get that. What I've tried to do is modify what might have been a heavy criticism by saying I can understand why they were put in that position, but I do not resile from the fact that this is a minimum standard.
So what are the consequences then?
Well, look, what we try to do in our various reports is to point to practices that we want improved. And it has worked in a couple of important respects, such as some years ago the tie-down beds, which we said you shouldn't do. And Corrections said, well, we have to. That's the only way we can do it. After our report, after our criticism, lo and behold, tie-down beds are now banned. And the same happened in schools where we recommended they stop secluding children with autism. So I think, Lisa, what I'm saying is, initially there's sometimes a bit of pushback, but in fact, providing we keep on, often they come our way.
So how many of these prisoners would have been in shared cells as well? So not only do you miss out on your hour outside, you are stuck with a cellmate for an extended period of time as well.
So I don't know the number off the top of my head, to be frank with you, but generally speaking, shared cells are common. So you would expect to find that in this situation, prisoners would have been sharing their space. So prisoners, you mentioned before, remand prisoners who were being brought in, they were in essence being kept in separate bubbles so that if there were any issues with them, they wouldn't affect other people. So they were in isolation. What effort did these prisons make to give them something to do during that entire time of lockdown? So I'm slightly concerned that all of that would have suffered as well. However, again, can I be balanced? When I asked my prison inspectors what level of complaints there were from prisoners, because I wanted to value test this on the ground, in fact, there weren't many complaints. The prisoners seemed to understand. I want to just say that the prisoners seemed to know what the COVID-19 level 4 rules were. They seemed to accept it. They seemed to think that the prison staff were making a good effort. So look, I'm wanting to say that this is better than I had expected, where I felt there'd be a lot of complaints by prisoners who hadn't had their minimum standard, but in fact more were understanding of the position than I had expected.
Which were the 4 jails?
We've decided not to name them.
Why not? Because you're basically sitting here arguing to me that sunlight is the solution here. So let's shed some sunlight on it.
I'm going to say that when we started off on these thematic reports, so we've got 3 tranches. I will answer your question, but I've got to do the right thing by those that I inspected. So there are 3 tranches. The mental health facilities report was Monday of last week. Today is the prison report, and then in about a fortnight will be the rest homes report. We had difficulty getting into 2 of those 3 categories. We had difficulty getting into rest homes, some, and we certainly had initial difficulty getting into prisons. The arrangement I came to was that this would be a non-heavy duty inspection. This would be a 6-hour snapshot of each prison.
Have you compromised your position with that then, and then to not name them?
We've compromised the position to the extent that at least we got in, and initially we couldn't get in at all. There's no resiling from the fact that these were not the usual in-depth reports that I do. But I couldn't. I just could not turn up with my normal army of 12 inspectors over 2 weeks. Lisa, it wouldn't have worked.
Will you name them if they don't pull their socks up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I will. And the reason for that is we make, and I'm not just saying that to please you. We do our recommendations, and if they don't follow those up and accept them and implement them, we do a follow-up visit and we say it's not good enough.
We're almost out of time, but I want to ask you about these isolation hotels which are being used for people coming back from overseas. You've got some concerns here. Should guests be mingling, should guests be checking into these hotels not knowing that they are isolation hotels?
Well, you see, you've asked me about prisons which I think managed their regimes well. I don't glean from what I've seen that management of the quarantine facilities has been up to scratch. And I know you haven't got much time, but for my staff to book into a hotel not knowing that it was going to be used as a quarantine facility, they had the prison inspection the next day, they found out at the last minute and were mingling with those that had come in on a plane. It just put me in the position where I had to abort the carefully arranged prison visit the next day. I felt let down by the system.
So when can we expect the results of your investigation into that?
Well, we are moving with great agility in the office these days, different to the past where things sometimes took a long time. We will get on with the job and start our inspections very soon. I've got to be relevant, so the report will come out very promptly.
Appreciate your time today. Always a pleasure to talk to you. That is the Chief Ombudsman Judge Peter Bosher joining me live in the studio.